Alaska is a symphony of ice, sea, and wilderness. A land where glaciers carve valleys, fjords reach inland, and wildlife thrives in the margins between snow and rock. Today, we'll journey through its wonders, riding coastal cruises past towering ice walls, hiking near glacier snouts, glimpsing wolves or bears along forest edges, and feeling how land, water, and ice co-evolve in the grandest theater of nature. Our story begins in Kenai Fjords National Park, where the Harding ice field reigns as a silent monarch of frozen mass. This enormous ice field covers over 700 square miles, sending dozens of glaciers tumbling toward the sea. One of its most dramatic children is Ayalik Glacier, flowing into Ayalik Bay, its towering face often shedding icebergs into the blue waters below. Just a bit farther, Holgate Glacier crests from the ice field into Holgate Arm, drawing boats and cameras alike for its imposing cliffs and calving spectacle. Yet Alaska is more than one region. It's an orchestra of ecosystems, and every note matters. Glacier Bay National Park, for instance, is a realm of tidewater giants like Margerie Glacier, whose ice front crashes into fjords at the edge of world. In Juneau's orbit lies Taku Glacier, one of the few major glaciers that has been advancing rather than shrinking, though climate pressures now tug on its balance. To really grasp Alaska's magic, you must feel it from water, air, and foot. Imagine boarding a small cruise in Resurrection Bay at dawn, slipping past sea cliffs where puffins nest as whales surface nearby. As the vessel moves deeper, you sense the temperature drop. Ice calving echoes. You glance up at glacier walls leaning into sea, blue ice sculpted by centuries. Mountains loom overhead, trailing waterfalls into silent fjords. Then comes a landing on gravelly shore for glacier hiking. You step onto sullen snow, boots crunching. Ahead, the glacier's front rears like an icy castle. Deep crevasses gape, meltwater rivulets snake over surfaces, and the glacier pulses. Not alive in the literal sense, but in motion, sliding over rock, flowing under its own mass. Underfoot, the ice is cold, hard, but fragile. Water seeps through cracks, feeding hidden streams beneath. The hush is profound. Every breath feels reverent. Change is evident. Exit Glacier, one of the few accessible by road in Kenai Fjords, reveals a timeline of retreat. Trail markers show where its ice once stood decades ago. As you walk the trail up from the valley floor, you sense the difference between glacier then and glacier now. The same is true when you stand before a tidewater glacier. The water at its foot is littered with icebergs in all shapes and sizes. Some tiny shards glowing azure, others huge blocks that echo as they shift. But Alaska's story isn't confined to ice and rock. Where fjords meet forest, life swells. In this boundary zone, sea otters cling to kelp beds, seals nap on ice floes, orcas pass in silhouettes, and bald eagles glide over coastal spruce. Inland, valleys shelter moose, black bears, and wolves. In alpine stretches, marmots whistle. Migration peaks bring flocks of seabirds, and the sky sometimes glows with northern lights. Every corner of the wilderness has rhythm and relationship. Temperature, moisture, and sunlight drive change. Summer melt carves streams across glaciers, fills rivers, and feeds estuaries. Vegetation expands along retreating glacial margins, birch and willow colonizing new soil. But warming also accelerates melting. Glacial mass balance, the interplay of snowfall versus melt, now often tilts toward loss. Some glaciers, once stable or advancing, now recede or lose volume significantly. One positive outlier is Taku Glacier, but even it shows signs of sensitivity to climate shift. Inhabitants, humans, and wildlife alike must adapt. Salmon run upriver, feeding bears and eagles. Fisheries respond to shifting water temperatures and flows. Communities reliant on fresh meltwater for hydropower or irrigation watch shrinking reserves. Tourism grows, eager to see Alaska before landscapes change irreversibly. Researchers install sensors, map changes with satellites, and monitor glacial dynamics to predict future behavior. The routes you choose matter. The Seward Highway to Kenai Peninsula is itself a scenic drive that curves along water, then pivots up toward glacier country. Small plane sightings, helicopter tours, and float planes let you see ice fields from above. Abstract patterns of cracks and flow lines that look like nature's fingerprint. Kayak through fjords, paddle between ice flows, drift beside ice walls, feeling proximity to something older than humanity. On those trips, you might pass through places named in native languages, the Tlingit, Dena'ina, Ayak peoples whose ancestral stories include these lands and waters. Their perspectives on change, stewardship, and continuity offer wisdom in a changing climate. Their knowledge of glaciers as living memory, of rivers and seas as heritage, reminds us that we are guests here. Toward the end of the day, perhaps you land on a remote spit of shore. The sun lingers, dusk stretches. You watch crests of glacier hills reflect pink afterglow. You feel the quiet as day narrows. In those hours, nature's scale humbles. You see the span of ages, the slow rhythm of ice, sea, and rock acting together. Every shift, an iceberg tip, a gull's cry, moss spreading over moraines, is part of a living tableau. That is Alaska's wonder. Not one spectacular landmark after another, but the ongoing flow of wildness, change, adaptation, and memory. To witness glaciers calve, fjords echo, forests reclaim, and wildlife persist is to glimpse what it means to live at the edge of raw nature. The human side of Alaska, small towns, native villages, and long-term residents, adds a deep layer to any visit. Indigenous cultures, Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian, Alutiiq, Yupik, and others, hold millennia of place-based knowledge about ice, fish, and weather. Seek out cultural centers, local museums, and guided experiences led by native storytellers. They provide context, the names on maps, the ecological knowledge behind seasonal patterns, and the cultural values that shaped long-term stewardship. Buying local crafts supports families and helps keep traditional arts alive. Attending a cultural demonstration or potlatch talk transforms a checklist trip into a deeper exchange. Be mindful of photography etiquette in communities. Always ask permission before photographing people or private events. Food in Alaska is a highlight. Fresh seafood dominates: halibut, king salmon, black cod, sablefish, and shellfish come to the table with immediacy you rarely find elsewhere. Small cafes serve soups with glacier melt clarity. Local bakeries turn flour into remarkable breads after long days on the water. In more remote lodges, meals are part of the experience. Warming stews after a day of paddling, or communal dinners where guides narrate the route and share local lore. Try traditional foods where offered: smoked salmon, reindeer sausage, or berry preserves. And be curious about harvest practices and seasons. If you fish, follow regulations and practice catch and release when appropriate. Fisheries are both livelihoods and ecosystems, and your respect matters. Safety and contingency planning are part of good travel in Alaska. Weather changes rapidly and cell coverage can be patchy. Always tell someone your intended route, especially if hiking or kayaking. Carry basic emergency gear: first aid, a whistle, a small repair kit for boats or packs, and know the location of the nearest ranger station or harbor master. If you go off-grid, consider renting a satellite beacon or PLB, personal locator beacon. Insurance that covers evacuation and flexible cancellations is wise when you're traveling in remote regions where a weather delay can cascade into missed connections. Read trip reviews, pick licensed guides, and don't push itineraries beyond comfort. Alaska rewards presence, not bravado. Sustainability matters more than ever. Many communities depend on tourism, but worry about over-tourism and resource strain. Choose operators with clear sustainability practices, limiting group sizes, avoiding sensitive landing sites, minimizing single-use plastics, and supporting local economies. Consider carbon offsets for flights, but more impactful is choosing longer stays over many short flights. Spend a week in one place and participate meaningfully. Thanks for traveling through this with me. If you enjoyed the trip, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's wild places. Hit the bell so you'll know when the next adventure drops. There's always more to explore.